Okay, so this is Emily Agnew, and today is November 14th, 2017, and this is a teleseminar about handling overwhelming emotions. And hello to all of you who are arriving. This will be taped so that you'll be able to listen to it again later if you like. I'm going to put it in a Dropbox file where you can access it for the next week after we're done. So this is my first time doing a teleseminar like this. Wish me luck. Speaking of emotional overwhelm, there's been a lot going on this week, so I've definitely had to practice what I preach. And if I occasionally get a little bit like my brain starts overheating, I'll just pause and take a breath, and feel free to join me if you like. So if you wanted to kind of say in one sentence what it is I do, I was thinking about how to describe that to you all. I would say I'm pretty devoted to creating all different kinds of environments where sensitive people can thrive. And in my experience, virtually all the clients who come to me are what we call highly sensitive. And I'm going to do a little slideshow, the fun slideshow I made for you guys about that in just a minute. But emotional overwhelm is a feature of the highly sensitive person, or HSP, landscape. And even if you're not an HSP, you're here because you're interested in the topic, and you certainly have an HSP in your life somewhere. So there are people that are here on the call and listening later on who are from the inner bonding world, which I'm certified in. That's a 6-step process for healing anxiety and depression through spiritual connection and inner dialogue. Some of you are from the focusing world. I'm also certified as a focusing trainer, and I combine both in my work. But I create in all different ways, places and ways for sensitive people to get better at creating a safe internal environment for themselves and also external environment. So for today, I wrote in big letters, talk slow and clear. So that's Isla, you're going to remind me, okay? Isla's 87, and she said her hearing's not so good. So I have to try and speak slowly. Oh, there she is. Hi, hi, Isla. Am I pronouncing your name properly?
But you know, my hearing is like 87 years because I am 87 years.
Right.
So all the distortions that this transmission system gives makes it much more difficult. So
okay.
All that is clearly and slowly spoken is the best.
Is the best. How am I doing so far?
Yeah, well, the slower part of it I can hear.
The slower part, okay. I will really try to speak slow. Thank you. Okay.
Please make it so that the others, they can hear you.
Okay.
I'm just one person.
Okay.
You shouldn't adjust everything for me, but as clearly and slowly, that's the best for me.
Sounds good. Okay, I'm going to mute you again. Okay. Okay, so, and just hello to those of you who are listening later on, and to those of you who sent me kind notes. I have a series of questions, too, that I received from some of you that we will cover a bit later in the call. But first, I wanted to show you this fun little slideshow that I made. So I'm going to screen share with you. It's about high sensitivity, just a kind of a quick, I can't really see all of you, but those of you who are here, how many people, just raise your hand if you are familiar with the idea of high sensitivity and or know yourself to be a highly sensitive person. I see some hands. Okay, me too. Okay. So many of the people that I work with or seem to be attracted to the work I do are sensitive, so I always want to say something about that. Okay, so I'm going to screen share the slideshow. Here we go. All righty, it's going to become the whole screen in just a second here. Now, here we go. So I love this picture. This is Henri Matisse, Icarus. You may know Icarus is the one who tried to fly too close to the sun and he melted down, which is kind of what happens to me as a sensitive person if I overdo it. I get overwhelmed and I melt down. So I used Icarus's outline in the rest of these slides about HSP basics. So this next slide is what happens when a non-HSP takes in stimuli. And boom, that's what happens when an HSP does in the same situation. A lot more. We take in a lot more information from our environment. And this is called, sensory sensitivity. About 1 in 5 people is born with this trait. It's something you're just born with. And we share it with about 100 different animal species too. So that's kind of what life looks like for an HSP. A lot is coming in at you all the time. Okay, and here comes the next one. And then we process deeply. See, that's that, whoop, slow down, come back. I'm gonna go back one. That's, see, that's what the blue swirly in his head is him processing deeply. And then we respond with emotional intensity. So that's the red heart, and the ziggies are all the emotional intensity. So these are the characteristics that all highly sensitive people share, that we take in a lot from our environment. We think about it deeply, process it. We feel deeply about what we think. And then we have a tendency to get over aroused, which that's what we're about to see. My attempt to depict that. We get overstimulated or aroused. I tried to make it look like his hair was on fire. But so that gives you an idea. That's kind of my little HSP brief. Let me stop this share. Make sure it's all. Okay, yeah, that's all my slides for now, I think. Make sure. Yeah, okay. So that's my basic HSP little mini course. And the upshot of it, all that, is that, like I said, we tend to get overstimulated, over-aroused, and we're what you could call environmentally susceptible, which is to say that our external environment really affects us a lot, and also our internal environment. So that's what I'm talking about when I say that in my work with people in various different ways, I teach modalities and do work that helps people have a more positive and internal environment and external environment. So the downside of being environmentally susceptible is that we are more, you could say, we're affected more by a difficult childhood. Like if you didn't get the emotional support that you needed as a kid, it hits you harder if you're a sensitive person than if you're a non-sensitive person. Okay, so, and there's 2 kind of ways that emotional overwhelm can look for us. One of them is the overstimulation piece. That's when you've just taken in too much. And if you've experienced that, you know what I'm talking about. It's like I personally feel like my body is buzzing in a not too fun way when I'm overstimulated. My head feels like a balloon that's been blown up a little bit too full. My thinking becomes scattered. I have trouble concentrating on one thing. I'm sure each of you probably has, you have your version of what that looks like being. So because we're looking at 2 kinds of, the other kind of overwhelm is emotional overwhelm, and that's what we're going to spend most of our time looking at today. But if you're overstimulated, like that kind of overwhelm, the best prescription for that is quiet, as you probably already know, quiet, and to de-stimulate, and also to go in and use your sensory sensitivity, direct it towards body awareness. So something like meditation or just following your breath a bit. I'm a big fan of something called somatics, which is a physical modality where you become very aware of subtle movements of your muscles, and that awareness is very relaxing. So those are just a few things, or some people get out in the woods. But mostly today I want to talk about emotional overwhelm, not HSP overstimulation overwhelm. So emotional overwhelm is paradoxically expressed the opposite. Sometimes it looks like hair on fire, like being really upset. Other times it looks like you being numb, it's the flip side, in that if you have really intense emotions, it can be very scary to let them out. So you feel like, oh, well, I don't feel anything, I'm just numb. So that's the flip side. That's another form of emotional overwhelm, is numbness. It's a different way of handling it. So what causes emotional overwhelm? And we'll go into this a bit deeper in answering some of the questions some of you asked. Well, it happens when you don't know how to be present with your feelings. And how does that happen? That happens if you did not have the experience of someone being present with you when you had intense emotions as a kid, or perhaps you witnessed others, your parents or people around you, handling their intense emotions in ways that were not helpful. So it's what we were modeled and how we grew up. I think we all know that. But in inner bonding, we call that kind of presence the loving adult that's able to be with and hold in a loving and accepting way any strong feelings that come up. In focusing, we call it self in presence. So you'll hear me using those two terms today, or a mixture, loving adult presence. It's all the same thing. It's an ability to get a little, just enough bigger than the overwhelming emotions that you're experiencing, to be able to be with them. Now, this is easier said than done. You can't just tell someone, oh, get bigger than that, because if it's a missing experience for you to have done that, it's kind of like trying to explain to a person who's been blind from birth what the color yellow looks like. So, sometimes for intense emotions, we really need to have that experience with another person, in order to be able to feel what it feels like. It's kind of like training wheels. So the other thing is that there is a double layer that often springs up with intense emotions. If as a kid you had like overwhelming heartbreak come up, or loneliness or fear, and no one was there to help you hold it, or you were shamed for having it, or some sensitive people were told what's wrong with you, why do you get upset so easily, why are you so sensitive, then we can develop a second layer to try and cope, which is usually it's some kind of a shutting down, a shaming, a self-shaming, a self-blaming, an inner critic, a fear, or an actual numbing, like where you just learn how to kind of press the feelings down and not feel them. They may get balled up in your body, but in fog, sleepiness, those are all ways of trying to cope with emotions that some part of you is afraid would be overwhelming if you felt them directly. Also, addictive behaviors, same way. You get out, the ice cream out of the fridge, or surf the internet in an addictive way, or even talking can be like talking. All different kinds of behaviors can serve to try and protect us from our overwhelming emotions. So, the good news is that we are environmentally susceptible, that phrase again, which means that if we can seek out and find environments where it is safe to feel those overwhelming feelings, and we can experience a container holding them, we can make really rapid progress in terms of learning how to develop a different kind of inner relationship with our feelings. Okay, so that's just a little bit about general stuff about emotional overwhelm. So then what I'd like to do is go through some of the questions that some of you submitted. And if you want to, I don't know how many of you have been on Zoom before, but if you mouse over the Zoom window and look at the bottom, there's a little chat bubble. And you can click on that and a little chat bar will spring out to your right, and you can type at the bottom. You can type a message if you have another question that you'd like me to answer. Okay? So let's see. So Sue in Glasgow said that, she said, through my life, I've been slowly developing strategies to deal with overwhelming situations, but could do with some time to concentrate on the phenomenon and also perhaps identify additional situations and strategies, preferably before they occur. So, Sue, if you're listening later, I hope you get some ideas from the call. And Chantal asked, Chantal is here. Chantal's in Quebec, and she asked, how do you overcome suppressed or repressed emotions, especially when you cannot be aware of them until an event triggers them? This is a really good question. I'm going to keep going. I always think that I'm fine and healed, but then these deep emotions are still there, and I don't know how to access them to release them completely. I think there are loads of us that walk like zombies emotionally, stuck in the past, repressed by many years of resistance and control as a means of defense mechanism. Could we also define the meaning of repression and suppression? And she goes on to say that she hasn't been a drinker or a smoker or used drugs, but somehow attracted people like that in her life. Yeah. And really wants to open her heart now and remove the walls. Okay. So this is a profound question, Chantal, that you're asking about. How do you overcome suppressed or repressed emotions, especially when you can't be aware of them until they get triggered? So that is a bit of a catch-22, because once you're triggered, you're so triggered, it's hard to be with the emotions. So here's where I have a kind of a scale that I use that I offer people and use for myself. If you imagine that your emotional intensity is on a scale of 1 to 10, and your 1 is you're great, you're doing great, 10 is you're in screaming pain. If an issue is like an 8 or higher, I will seek one-to-one support for that, because it's just too intense to try and hold a container, by myself, or even with a friend or focusing partner. Now, this may be the case with the kind of emotion that you're describing, Chantal, because if something does not come up except when it gets triggered, chances are it's because it hasn't had a safe container in which to come up. And if you were able to provide a safe container, maybe it might have come up. But most of us don't know how to do that. So the best thing I know to do is, with support, what you do is some body grounding, so that you are coming into that loving adult presence in yourself. And then you invite what wants to come here now in the present moment about that whole, whatever the area is, that you have that emotional intensity in. And then you get accompanied through whatever comes up. This can be very, very effective, and it allows you to have some control, so that your two choices aren't either like repress or suppress, or have it be fully triggered by the feeling. So you asked about how would I define suppression and repression? These aren't technical definitions I'm going to offer, but I would say that we repress or push down feelings when we don't trust that we have a container to hold them. Right? Does that make sense? And for many of us, if having our feelings kind of held and respected, another way to put it is, if our parents could kind of handle our upset and stay calm themselves, then that's how we learn to do that. But if they didn't, then we don't have any way of, how would we even know what that would feel like? So we develop a secondary layer of emotion. Like I mentioned a minute ago, it can be shame, blame. Often we conclude there must be something wrong with us, but that's what we call the feeling about the feeling. And the feeling about the feeling will keep the original feeling pushed down until it knows, as I joke, that there's a new sheriff in town. As you learn to be a loving adult to yourself, then those protective parts will step to the side. But until then, they need to go first. They need to be heard and have company. Okay. So that's the kind of work I do with people one-on-one, is helping them hold company. And some modalities try to push through. They call that resistance. I don't agree with that at all. Something that you might call resistance is a part of you, a place in you that is trying to protect you and not wanting you to get overwhelmed. And we have to be like really respectful of that and go slowly with it. Let me see if what else is there in that question that I might. Yeah, okay. You said you don't drink, smoke, or do drugs, but you've attracted those kind of people in your life. Yeah. If you're numbing your feelings, what happens is there's no inner relationship there. So we do tend to attract, we tend to get into relationships with other people who kind of have that same, who are in the same, I don't know, that same kind of mode of being. And, there, it sounds like maybe your partner did the more overt kind of numbing and you were doing just the more push it down inside kind of numbing. But the more you develop a relationship with yourself, then those emotions that you fear would be overwhelming, actually they're in an adult body, they can be felt they can be felt safely. Okay. Chantal, was there more that, did I answer your question there?
Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Well, yes, you did answer my question. And because I'm doing that, I've been doing inner work for 40 years because I've meditated for 35 years, and the meditation didn't do because I was hiding behind meditation while I was having my problem. I repressed more and more into meditation. So my intent was not right. It was to hide behind it. So I stopped meditating. I told my guide, I said, it's not working for me because I'm not doing it for the right reason. So I need to be true to myself and authentic. And like you, I read the book Nonviolent Communication to become authentic. That helped me. Mm-hmm. I still don't know where I'm at. I've just recently divorced, and I was in a kind of abusive relationship for 15 years, and I got rheumatoid arthritis. So all of that, I said, this is too much for me. I need to take care of myself. Mm-hmm. Now I'm on my own, but my daughter suffers from anxiety and all kind of things that I have. And she takes prescribed cannabis and anxiety pills and things like that. So I'm trying to help her while I'm trying to help myself, to get those suppressed emotions. So I'm not too sure yet where I'm at. I'm trying to be as authentic as I can, face my fear and my emotion. But like I said, they're so deep down that I don't know until it happened,
That's right.
So, and I just take one day at a time, and hopefully I'll wake up from that nightmare of being a human being.
Okay. Yeah, well, I would want you to experience something better. Yeah, when you describe the intensity of what you're experiencing, I'm guessing some kind of one-to-one support is going to be a good idea, to help you hold the space. And so that you can be present. I am hearing how much you want to be present for your daughter. Okay.
Yes, so that's the one-to-one support that I'm having. We're just projecting each other and trying to help, but there's so much I can do because I'm still in the process too. So I'm hoping that, I will become self-realized and understand the inner child and the inner adult, which I'm starting to understand now and realize and be free.
And be free.
With him. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Blessings. I hope so too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So, that's a deep question that Chantal asked. Okay, so here's another question from Marge in Toronto. Marge said, what are the words that you would use to explain to a husband of 10 years, a room of my own is a necessity for me and has nothing to do about him? How do I keep it from seeming personal? And I'm curious, Marge, I don't think Marge is here, so I'm going to try my best to answer that question. And the first thing, if Marge were here, I would ask her, what is the room of her own for? Like, because that would help her empathize better maybe with her husband's concerns. I think that would be the first thing that I would suggest. I'm guessing, Marge, that you're experiencing some kind of emotional overwhelm, perhaps, from needing a place that you can go. But that's just my guess. But in terms of explaining it to your husband, I think it would be not so much about the words that you use as the energy that you're in. If you can, if you're able to be open to his concerns and to listen. And what my partner and I do around issues like this, that like if there's something I need to bring up with him that I'm worried might hurt his feelings or he might take it as about him, I will say, sweetie, there's something I'd like to talk to you about that's important to me, and I really, really matters to me to be able to connect with you about it, and for both of us to feel comfortable with however we decide to handle it. And I would like to kick into reflection mode, which we have an agreement, kicking into reflection mode means that we each reflect back, we try and say back as best we can what the other person said or our understanding of their meaning before reacting to it. So that right there will go a huge, long way, because I'm guessing, Marge, that one of the concerns you have is staying connected to your husband through the process while also not giving up on your needs. So wouldn't worry so much about the words, but just tell him that the reasons that you have for needing your own space, and that you'd like to hear what concerns he has about that. And if he has concerns, you reflect them back and say, so for you, like, for example, my partner sometimes snores at night in a way that makes it hard for me to sleep. So sometimes I go in the other room. And then when I first started doing that, I was really worried about hurting his feelings. But we talked it over, and I just explained, look, I love you, and I'll come back and snuggle with you in the morning. I just really need to be able to get some sleep. Okay. So I hope I've answered your question, Marge, because this is a really important thing, to be able to express your own needs while also staying in connection with another person. Okay. So let's see. Karen from Massachusetts asked, and this is a really good question too. What if you're dealing with a dysregulated partner or family member? Are there specific words you can say to help them get back into self and presence, same as loving adult, without sounding condescending? That's a really good question. What do you do with someone else's emotional overwhelm? Because I would agree, I am hearing, Karen, implied here that you've tried some ways of doing this that were experienced as condescending. And I just wanted to validate that my partner happens to actually be a nonviolent communication trainer, right? And we both got tons of communication training. And boy, if I try to say, honey, you're really triggered, he'll tell me to put it where the sun doesn't shine. It does not go well. So I would suggest that if you have a partner who's dysregulated, and for those of you, if that's not a familiar term, it just means someone who's kind of their prefrontal cortex has started to go offline a bit because their stress level has gone high enough that they're quite upset. What I would do is, if it were me, I would focus on myself. I might say to my partner, you seem really upset, or I would just reflect back what they're saying. Often just hearing the other person really helps them calm down, but not with the intent of calming them down. if I I'm trying to calm them down, then really I'm trying to control them in a way. So if they're so upset that I'm getting overwhelmed by the volume level, then I'll say, hey, I'm hearing how important this is to you. I really, really want to talk to you about this, but I can't do it like this. I'm gonna go out now, and I'll come check back with you in an hour and see if we can talk about this. So it's, in effect, I'm putting myself in timeout. So that's one option. Another option is to just listen and reflect what the other person's saying. And sometimes, then they'll be able to come back and kind of talk to you. Okay. And those are the main things that I know to do. A third is to wait until the person has calmed down. But that basically involves putting yourself in timeout again, like being willing to say, I want to talk to you about this, but not like this, Yeah. Or is there anything I can do for you right now? I see how upset you are, but not trying to calm them down. I know that if I feel like someone else is trying to calm me down, because they don't like me being upset, that makes me feel worse. I think a lot of people feel the same way. So I hope that answers that question. Let's see. And Taj asked, I think Taj is here. Yeah, so Taj, you can, I'll try and answer your question, then you can unmute yourself I'll check in with you afterwards. She said, maybe address when an overwhelming emotion comes, and remember, it's a something, but there's another something that's in focusing. That's a way that we speak of, oh, there's something going on in me, right? It's a way of kind of being with. So Taj is saying, so you're aware there's an overwhelming emotion, and so you know that that's there, but there's another part of you that doesn't want to, I don't know, that doesn't want to be with it. That's what I think I'm hearing you ask. She said there's another something that doesn't want to take that resourceful move, that blocks the discipline of choice that would take me down out of a downward spiral. So Taj, it sounds like you're concerned about getting like merged with a part that's spiraling down, yet it's hard to choose to like move into self and presence. So I think what you need to do there is just back up a step and be with the not wanting to be with the overwhelming emotion. That's no wonder. I mean, overwhelming emotions are overwhelming. And if we've had those experiences I described it earlier of not having any company with them, we have parts of us that don't want to go there. They don't want to be with them. They just go away, So we can be with that. So it's always being with the outermost layer. So let me just unmute you, Taj, and just check and see if here we go. If I'm succeeding in answering your question. Hi, Taj.
Hi, Emily.
Hi.
Yeah. You did a nice thing there. It's like the less resourceful I get, the less resourceful I get, and the less resourceful. And then I'm just stuck there until I'm not.
Yes. So here's something you can try the next time you get upset. And Taj, you may be familiar with this from treasure maps, but we call it just holding it all, where no matter how bad it gets, you can always say, wow, I'm just going to pause. Pausing is huge. I'm going to pause and just sense how it is to be me right now.
Oh, that's nice phrasing. Thank you.
Yeah, just how it is to be me right now. I hate this. I have no desire to be, I just want it to go the hell away. Just be totally real. And this is how it is to be me right now. And then you just take a breath. And that right there is a really powerful kind of self-empathy. Mm-hmm. It's just back up until you can find something to say that's true. Like, wow, I'm really upset right now and I have no desire to do anything about it. Or whatever's true. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So let's see, was there another? That's all the questions. Now I see that Michelle has put one in the chat. I've done a pretty good job of focusing with my focusing partner after a triggering event. Okay. and dealing with the emotions that I wasn't able to be with in the moment when they're triggered. How do I move to being present in that moment? Right. So well, obviously over time, we hope that we can kind of, do some inner healing so we don't get as triggered, but that can be a really slow process. And sometimes there are just some things that we just always get triggered. But what you can do in the moment, there's an area between being just like the Dalai Lama, perfectly calm, and being completely in the river with your strong emotions where you're totally merged with them and have no sense of choice. So in between there is feeling the trigger, feeling the body arousal, all the feelings that go with that, and just noticing that and actually saying that to the other person. Saying, again, it's that little pause. It's that pause where you stop and you say, whoa, like I might say to my partner, hang on. I just noticed I'm starting to get toasted. Just give me a sec here. And then I stop and I assess, can I keep going here? Or do I need to put myself in timeout? And he and I have each said that to the other. You say, you know what? We could continue this conversation, but you're not going to like what you're going to hear from me. So, yeah. And sometimes the other person doesn't want to disengage and they'll keep coming after you and you have to actually run away and shut the door. Michelle, does that, let me unmute you and just check and see. Does that answer your question?
Kind of. And I think too, listening to you has helped me. Being that the holidays are coming up, there's a part of me that is very anxious about the interactions with my family. I don't see my family a lot on purpose. I love them, but they're very unconscious. It can be very mean. And so there's a part of me that is bringing to me, remember when this happened? Remember when this happened? Remember when this happened? And some of the things that have happened have been instances of where I've gotten overwhelmed and have felt like I don't know what to do, like I froze. And I'm trying to change that habit.
Okay.
And the one in particular, as you're describing this, I'm realizing now, as I'm remembering this, when it happened, I did say to someone else, not the person who triggered me, but to someone else who was there, I did say, wow, I'm really ticked off right now. I'm really having a hard time. And they said, yeah, I am too. And to your point, the person who triggered me was not in a space where I could have gone to them anyway. So it was probably okay that I didn't express my mind in that particular moment. So there's a lot here around this particular situation that I probably could focus on and do more, but just your description helps. Oh. And you had said something earlier too about, on that scale of 1 to 10, when you're at a 9 or 10, it really is best to be with another person. And so I hadn't thought of this. I may reach out to my focusing partner and say, hey, next week, Thanksgiving Day, I'm with my parents. You're going to be, can we make some kind of a pact that if we need each other for 5 minutes, I can leave the house and call you and have that presence. So I think I'm going to do that. That will help.
Yeah. Have a resource of support. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I'm hearing you say that something in you, it's been bringing you memories, it's getting worried ahead about remember when you got numb. Yeah. And again, you really can always put yourself, but even you can put yourself in timeout, but even there, you can be somewhat triggered, right? And going that direction and just noticing it is enough. You don't have to be perfectly calm. You can kind of notice it enough to go, wow, what feels right now? Am I able to stay in this conversation, or should I exit? And you get to know what it feels like when you're starting to get checked out.
Yeah.
It feels like my eyeballs are mounted 6 inches behind my head somewhere, and my face becomes this kind of hard mask when I'm really checked out and triggered. It's as if I'm speaking from way behind myself, which is it's almost the beginnings of a dissociation. And I've got to recognize that. And it's no use if I'm to that point, I'm not thinking straight.
And that's what I'm wanting, is to be able to notice it as it's happening. It's been so overwhelming for so long that I don't notice it until I've been that way for 2 or 3 hours, and my back is, it's like, well, gee,
right.
no wonder you've been checked out for 3 hours,
So I would consider any time you spend, it sounds like even thinking about your family, let alone actually visiting them, to be doctoral level work. Think of it as a doctoral level dissertation project on emotional overwhelm. And in the morning when you get up, set an actual intention. Just say, wow, I really want to see if I can possibly catch the moment where I start getting triggered. And if you don't, you always learn something when you set an intent like that.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you can kind of review and say, oh wow, I actually did catch it.
That's a good point, and that's probably a good thing to focus on, because when I've been noticing these last several weeks, when it comes up, where I go to is, okay, well, we have to solve this whole situation, and that's just way too big. So even just focusing on, let's see if I can figure out at what point did I start to switch into overwhelm. That's a good enough start.
Right, just the next step. What's the next step?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So more questions. You can just unmute yourself and just speak if you like. These are all really good questions. So and at any time, you can ask a question. I did have one more thing I wanted to share with you, since it seems naturally to have come up. So just give me a sec. I'm going to open a file that I want to share with you about trauma, because it'll speak to what we were just talking about. Here we go. Well, I was saying what happens when I get checked out. Let's see, trauma. Here we go. Trauma graphic. Okay, I'm going to open that up, and then I'm going to screen share with you. Okay, this is a graphic I made. Oh, that didn't work. Hang on. Try one more time. Okay, now try. Here we go. Okay, so share screen. So this is, it says understanding trauma. Can you guys, somebody wave at me if you can see it okay? You can see it okay? All right. So if you look at the left, the red up towards the top is too high, right? Too much arousal. I mean, your arousal level is just your level of attention, alertness. So it's not a bad thing. It's if it goes too high, right? Or too low, that it's not good. So too high is the red direction. Too low is the blue direction. I didn't invent all this. I just added the colors and played with it to make it more visually accessible. But so optimal arousal is this green area in the middle where we feel alert and energized and curious and engaged. Those are all the qualities of self and presence, or your loving adult, right? So, and then if we go, we're all familiar with fight or flight. This was helpful for me though, because I don't think I didn't realize that fight and flight are actually both hyper aroused states, right? In both cases, you're mobilized either to fight or to run away. Okay, so there's a tension in it, there's a guardedness, there's a vigilance, right? Like your antennae are out. There's agitation often. For us as HSPs, any kind of overwhelm gets exaggerated, and your ability to think gets pretty confused. On the lower side, hypoarousal, which is freeze or shut down. I experience that as the fog rolls in, or if any of you have ever seen The Wizard of Oz, it's like when the witch is doing her wand over her crystal ball and she's saying, poppies will make them sleep. And they all start falling asleep. I just get super drowsy, like my eyes will roll back in my head and stuff. So that's hypo. It's a shutdown. It's like going towards being an opossum who's playing dead. Distant feels like you're withdrawing far into yourself. So like that eyeballs thing I described where my eyeballs are mounted, that would be hypoarousal, or numb or weak. You feel weak. So the thing to know about this is if you had a rough childhood, your green window is going to be narrower than it otherwise would be. Okay. More things will knock you into hypo or hyper until you do, if you do healing work, especially some of the energy modalities like EMDR and stuff can really help widen that green window. But it's really, really important for us, for anyone who has a tendency to emotional overwhelm, which most highly sensitive people do. It's important to know the signs of you exiting your window in either direction, okay? Because it doesn't say this on the form, but when you go outside those black lines into the red or the blue, your prefrontal cortex goes offline. So functionally, you're not much use in terms of conflict resolution or anything. And since we wonder why our fights feel so bad, it's because we do all of our fighting in that red zone or in the blue zone. And there's our best part of our brain is not engaged. Okay. So I just wanted to share that with you because that's an important component of understanding intense emotions. Okay. So, we still have a bit more time left, so I wasn't sure if we'd have time for this or not. But I want to just offer you a completely different kind of suggestion, too, for dealing with emotional overwhelm. And that is to remind yourself who you really are, which is, I just have a belief or experience that we are spiritual beings here having a human experience. And there's a way that you can remind yourself of that immediately by doing, we can just do it together for a minute by just breathing into your heart in this certain way. So if you want, just try that with me for a couple minutes. Just, you can close your eyes if you like and just become aware of your breathing. Inhaling and exhaling. Just calm your breath. Steady it. And then begin to direct it into the area of your heart. So you exhale into your heart, and then, inhale into your heart, and then exhale. And then add one more subtle piece at the top of the inhalation. Just pause slightly. And the quality of the pause is as if you took a very thin gossamer scarf and tossed it into the air. And it would go up, and then there would be this moment where it just hangs there before starting to fluidly fall back down. So it's just that soft and brief of a pause. So inhale, pause, and exhale. And the breath is both a symbol and a literal example of our constant, taking in and releasing. So as you take in, and at that moment of suspension at the top of the in-breath, see if you can just feel how there's a sense of touching something behind your heart. In that moment, in just the very present moment there, you touch your own essence, your own soul, which is beyond any conditioning, any environmental susceptibility, any emotions. It's just your true, pure self. Can never be damaged or traumatized in any way. It's always there. And ultimately, this is really the source of peace from emotional overwhelm. It's really the only reliable place we can go, since conditions are so changeable in a physical body. So I'm going to be quiet for just a minute or two. So just continue to breathe in this way and have that sense of touching the essence of your spiritual self. Okay, so when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. And I'd love to hear how that was for you, if anyone would like to share what you experienced breathing in that way. If you want to kind of put your hand up, I can unmute you. Or you can unmute yourself and speak.
I can say something about that.
What's that, Chantal?
I can say something about that because I do that every night or whenever I put one end on my heart, well, the heart chakra, and the other end on the other chakra. What is the one, the emotional chakra? What's the name again? I cannot remember.
The third chakra. Yeah.
So I just imagine that it's flowing from the heart to the emotion in a circle.
Mm-hmm.
And do that. And they say this is a form of self-healing. So I hope it works. And then my for the people who are familiar, my third eye, then I feel it moving a lot. And then I see an inner blue electric light.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's the healing light.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have that, I get very energized that way. So it helps. And the breathing, it's everything. It's the link between, I would say, life and death in a way. So, yeah. So it's nice to do it with other people. You feel it's more intense and it's give more energy also. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Catherine?
Well, what occurred to me was that breathing exercise is simple enough that it can really be done sort of in a stealth kind of way, even in the midst of whatever is really overwhelming. Like if I'm at a Thanksgiving dinner where my family's driving me crazy, I can just, stop and breathe. I mean, no one's going to know what I'm doing, but it's changing me.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You're right. It's portable and it's invisible, and you really can do that. That's really true. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for saying that, because I'm going to remember that for myself too. Yeah. Did anyone have a sense of touching something bigger in yourself? Yes? Anyone? Yeah.
Yeah, Emily, I wanted to share, I found it very peaceful, very calming, and it was a familiar feeling. I have felt it before, but I usually am not in touch with it. And I think also there's something that's kind of sad, because wouldn't it be great if we could all connect with each other from that place? And it just feels like, we're all too busy moving and reacting, and it takes some time to get in touch with that and to stay with it. And
Mm-hmm.
many people either aren't willing or don't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm. I'm really appreciating your saying that, and want to just share a very brief example of that. I was surprised. I was actually able to help. My family's in a very stressful situation right now. My dad's very, very ill, and my siblings and I have been talking a lot on the phone, and we can all we talk over each other because everyone's anxious and wanting to be heard. And I just made a choice during one of the calls to just step back and really stay, focused here. And it completely changed the call. I was really surprised. One of my brothers actually mentioned it to me later. And I wanted to offer that because I was really surprised how much effect it had. And that you don't actually, it's okay if other people don't do it, but if you do it, it's pretty amazing the effect that it will have. People don't want to be rushing around. They just forget. You know, so any amount that you can carry that with you, it really does radiate out, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
That's postdoctoral to do that at your parents' house over the holidays. That's like Nobel Peace Prize level.
Yeah, we'll try. We'll see.
Right.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. So, so I just wanted to add a couple things before we just tie this together with the work that I do before we hang up. So, because like I said, I'm very, that's what makes me feel good. Like I'm using my life energy well, is to create spaces where, you know, people who experience this kind of emotional intensity, especially highly sensitive people, can find emotionally and, you know, physically and psychologically supportive environment. So this kind of call is one of those places, and I'm going to be doing that once a month. So if you want to find out about this, just go to my website, and I'm going to send out a follow-up email tomorrow and sign up for my e-zine. I don't pepper people. I just send out basically 2 emails a month, each with an article in it about high sensitivity. And I'll let you know about future calls like this. Then I also do one-on-one for the more intense stuff. And there's a place you can sign up for a complimentary 20-minute call if you want to meet me and learn more about that. And then also, I really love to teach focusing. Focusing partnership is just the most incredible way of creating. Michelle is a focuser. Catherine's a focusing partner. It's the most wonderful way to create a safe space between 2 people. You trade time. You both get trained in focusing. So I teach that. And there's there's various places you can take beginning focusing, but mine is unusual in that I weave in information about high sensitivity, which turns out to be a really powerful combination. So if anyone's interested in that, let me know. I just wait till I get 6 people stacked up, and then we find a time and we start. And yeah, so just I'll send you, keep an eye out for an email tomorrow. So if you're not subscribed to the e-zine, you can do that, because that's the only way to find. I don't have any other way of reaching people to let you know about the next one of these. Okay. And then, are there any final questions or anything that you'd like to ask before we hang up? It's 5 o'clock, so we're right on time. Yay. Anyone want to have anything you want to say? Or, well, I really appreciate you all coming today. It's nice to see your smiling faces. And I hope this was of some use or help to you. That was the point of it. And if you come back, oh, thank you. Okay. If you come back again, it's going to be, I'm going to get a proper teleseminar service where it's just easier, the sign-up's simpler and stuff. So that'll be exciting. All right. So thank you all. Yeah, maybe I wonder if I can sort of unmute everyone. But anyway, goodbye. Thank you all for coming. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, have a wonderful day.
Nice meeting you.
Bye, Emily.
Nice to see all of you.